Now joining us is Professor LenkaBula. Thank you so much for making time for us, Vice-Chancellor. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Adrian. I'm truly appreciative of the invitation by you. I like your programs. I like how you probe. And I like the fact that you are excited by ideation. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for making time for us as well. Let's start off here with that anecdote that you shared during the farewell. What was that moment for you like as that young lecturer? And you speak about being a junior lecturer during that time. And you say that at that time as well that lecturers didn't really have the power perhaps that they hold currently. And of course, the university being a contested space as well.
Yes, thank you very much. I already had a doctorate and I already was a lecturer, working towards being a senior lecturer. What had happened is that the voices of the margins, understanding that I joined as the second Black woman in the Faculty of Theology and Religious Studies, were often silenced, and we were made to feel as though the descriptors around knowledge of Africans or Africans in the diaspora did not constitute the substantive ideas or the substantive philosophies that we needed to teaching about. One of the study guides that I taught on social ethics, it was a feminist ethics and social ethics study guide. It stated that I'm making an example. It stated that sometimes Black women do not know where to stand. Either they want to be in solidarity with Black men because of race, or they want to be with white women because of solidarity on the grounds of gender. And my question was, why can't Black women be understood as moral, rational agents who can have their own stance? And whether they decide to be in solidarity in their social analysis around the questions of gender, or with men, or with people living with disabilities, or LGBTQIAA plus persons, why should Black women not be allowed to have their independent, autonomous, rational voices? So these are some of the contestations that in the knowledge arena, especially knowledge arena that has always looked at mimicking Western civilizations, we must empower one another, but we must also ensure that such knowledge becomes mainstream, it dialogues, and it has interlocutors even with other knowledge systems. Hence, the example I was giving around the linking of South Africa with Haiti or with the diaspora was not just a linking in terms of geographic or physical aspect. It was also around knowledge as epistemic, emancipatory, liberatory act, because it is in Haiti, in the quest against the might of the French Revolution, that had undermined the voices and the participation of the Black people as they asserted the freedom, liberty, and the idea of democratic participation. And that hypocrisy or contradiction is something that we have to engage with at all times when we're dealing with knowledge.
I think something quite interesting about the anecdote as well is even around the symbolism of people who walk around the institution with firearms, because some people would give of themselves the title that says that we are the bearers of knowledge production, and having to contest that particular space that is actually not the fact. And that brings about the conversation about when we speak about the indigenous knowledge systems and whether they do find any space at all in higher education.
Yes, indeed. One of the aspects how on defining violence, Aldrin, has often been to thinking around physical violence. But epistemic violence is the idea that one or institutions or organizations do not create enabling environments for the flourishing of knowledge systems or ideas. It doesn't matter whether it's ideas from the continent or ideas from other environments. But universities must be those spaces where ideas have conversations, interchange, are built on others, but also they contest. And there's been somewhat a shame, or people feel ashamed to reassert and propel or project Africa's knowledge systems, because in the history of the global knowledge development, there's always been this idea that Africa must consume and not necessarily Africa must construct knowledge. And I think the idea of Pan-African epistemic knowledges that are decolonial, anti-colonial, are not necessarily around demeaning the other, but are about projecting the best that Africa's knowledge systems are about.
And also then considering the social stratification and where it places the black women per se, and especially within the academic sphere. And some would say that, people in academia, there's a lot of arrogance that takes place, So once somebody like yourself then enters the space, and I don't know if you can share with us your personal experiences of a young black woman in that space and what it was like.
Thank you very much. I want to encourage all women when they enter universities to understand that the fact that they have the cognitive and affective skills, that's quite important. Secondly, to claim your voice. Thirdly, no matter what impediments are put in place, if you can claim your voice and ensure that you invest your talent in the right direction, there will be support. So, for instance, when I joined the university, I was doing my doctoral studies, but also at the same time, I had already published before in the Canadian Journal in a book that was edited by a famous Canadian social scientist and advocate of justice, John Mihevik. Yet my first publication at UNISA, which was around economic and ecological justice, I was told it has potential. But this article was published in an accredited journal that is recognized by the Department of Higher Education. If I did not have the courage to push a little bit, I could have lost the commitment of publishing or of writing, because the system wanted to negate what I wanted to talk about. I wrote an article 18 years ago around the rape of children under 10 years. And my idea was to say, this is a social anomaly. The patriarchal discourse has often used dress or demeanor or women's conduct to justify violence against women. And how then do we as a society make sense of the rape of children? Because that's symptomatic of the radical fabric of society being really, really annihilated. But it also means that as a society that's fractured, we really need to find ways that we don't think of gender-based violence as only something that women or feminist scholars or womanist scholars or Busadi scholars must be reflecting on, but society in general, including in knowledge systems or knowledge arena, that must be pushing that. So when scholars 20 years later write around rape, and then it becomes as though it's something new in scholarly and feminist articulation, it is actually something that has to be contested, to showing that the manifestations of violence are entwined with the structural violence in institutions, organizations, and society, and we must constantly project it as an ill that we have to overcome.
Sure.
I'm just giving those two examples around some of the challenges we may have gone through.
And of course, this also then speaks to the issue around the erasure of the work that has been done by women before, as you now speak about topics, for instance, that have become popular even within the academic sphere as well. But Professor LenkaBula, when we come back, we're going to have a conversation about Pan-Africanism and what Pan-Africanism looks like, what sort of expression does it take, and what does it mean for the knowledge-based system that the country and various countries on the continent currently has.